Hi, today I'll take a watercolor tutorial on how to draw the Asian bluebird. The basic materials that you will need is a good watercolor paper, preferably 300 GSM. You'll need a basic palette of watercolor paints. It could be any brand that you like or comfortable with right now. A few basic brushes, a half an inch, a number 5 round, and a thin brush to draw in your details. You need an eraser, and you need a H pencil or any pencil that gives a very light mark so that it doesn't show when you paint. And I've got here 2 containers of water. That is the most important part over here. These 2 containers help you keep your water clean so that the colors don't get muddy when you paint. So one container you'll use it to wash your brushes, and the other one you will keep it clean so that it doesn't make your paint on the paper dirty. So now we start. I've already drawn the bird here. The reason this time I haven't used the masking tape is why the paper is sort of coming up like this. Otherwise you can tape it down to whatever surface and then do your drawing so that it doesn't warp like this. But now I do that, and predominantly I will apply the color of my choice for the background, which is a green. It's a sap green. So I will just quickly apply that with the same brush I applied the paper. The reason I have these 2 here is where one I will dip my brush and wash the paint off if I'm changing my color, and then dip my brush in the clean water. So this container will remain clean throughout, and this will be the one which will become dirty throughout your painting, so that you get the purest form of color. So I sometimes like to add some other colors just to give it an element of interest. So that is up to you. You can do whatever color you like. When you come to this part, it's kind of tricky, so you go slow. Yeah, so that is done. You've got your background ready. Now next, let me do the bird. Let me just take the picture. So you see it's a bit of black, so I take my black, and you see I'm going to do the head part. So here I sort of give it a light. Change my brush, use the thinner one because it's for the bird. It's easier to take the blue because the bird is, this is an ultramarine blue. It's a lovely shade of blue. So if you see, there's more light here and it's darker down there. I apply more water where I need it light and I go over it like this. Don't mind that it is coming into the black, because anyway we can do the black over the blue. It's a darker color and it has this lovely line over its head, so I go over that. Take the color in and then lightly bring your brush. In like this. Then there's still a bit of this blue to go in here. It's here. That's the tail feather. So we're not trying to get in very detailed drawing, it's just getting the essence of the bird and the colors. The great thing about this is you have to observe, and only then you can do the details. And I go back to my black and I'm going to do my details in slowly. I'm going to mix the blue, the black with a bit of blue, because that'll, every now and then it's nice to control the amount of water by running your brush, and if you want a pointed tip, just run your brush on the tissue paper and see that curve here for the bird. I mix a bit of black with a bit of my blue, so you get a lovely shade of black. Done. So we continue with this color that I mixed, the black and the ultramarine blue. I mix it here because it's easier for me to control the lightness or darkness of the color that I'm taking. More water will give me a lighter hue, and more of the paint will give me a darker hue. So here what I'm doing is I'm going to do the details a little bit. Step by step, I'm just darkening the, I've removed my paint. I'll remove the excess pigment from here. And then I take the darkest black that I need and I go over this. Okay? And then underneath, the There's a little smudge that will happen because you've put wet paint and over that you're doing it before it dries. And that is nice when it comes to painting birds because it makes it look a bit feathery and fluffy. It's like the bird turning his head, so it will be darker here under the neck, and then you have this little dark spot here because he's turning your head. And I'm going to draw the little hairs. And then again, now I will take paint again, the one with mixed with blue, because I'm going to give that, form that little shape over here, this part. So it's kind of bluish hue. This is the wing. So I'll take it as one stroke so that it that is done. Take it a little bit more blue. And then this is where the feathers sort of come in. Let that dry. Now take just blue, because blue. Just putting that there. You can see that this water has almost become black, but when I wash it from here, it sort of still remains white. So when I wash my brush, I get perfect clean brush, and then I dip it in water and take my blue, and I'm going to do this part of it, which is what gives that whole 3D look of the bird. So you've got that part, and then I'm going to darken a bit more black here. Now I'll start darkening it, giving it texture where it's, and because I'm doing wet on wet, you can see the color smudge, and sometimes in watercolor that's what adds the beauty. I'm drawing very thin lines here. And fluffy part of the body here. And then for the leg, I just, with my black, just a thin line, it's sort of gripping on to this thing. And take water and do the other part, lots of water, so it's almost more water and very little pigment. I give the highlighted part. You can use a very thin brush if you want. I can show you that, where I take my number 1 if you're very uncomfortable using the thicker brush. See? And then roll it over the tissue, because that will give you a nice sharp point, and go over it. That is the bird clinging on to that branch. That, okay. And I'm going to do the details of this part. Take a bit of blue, like the blue. I'm taking pigment directly because I want it nice and bright. The shadow of this, that's there. And then the very edge is black, so I wait for it to dry and then do that shape. It's almost like a V.
Stopping.
Now we're just darkening the parts to give that, add a little bit of depth and give the finishing touches. And we do the same on the other side. This is part underneath. I'm just applying the black and a bit here to show the underneath part of the wing. darkest part of the black. By now the paint is dry, so the dark parts would be really bright. Not much of water is taken in. It's just directly the pigments, and I'm going to switch to my thinner brush because I'm going to do details near the eye. A little bit more of blue mixed. Now I take a lot of blue and a lot of water. This time I dip it in blue because I really want my blue to stand out white right here. Wash it, blend it in here. So that gives the turn of the head. Now I will do the eye, which is a red. I first apply orange to it. Leaving a bit of white will give a little glint to the eye and more life. I mix it with a darker magenta hue. If you see my palette, it's a basic palette. You don't have to get anything more than this, but if you want to, you feel free. But any set of watercolor with a basic palette will do for this. So now what I'm doing is I'm adding the darker details in the bird. Once that is over, we can go through and we can do the background. So it's very little to be done now. Yeah, that's it. Just a bit of line here. Just add a little here to give that thing. Once it dries, it will be okay. That's done. The bird is done. Now I'm going to go back to my thicker brushes because I'm going to do the background, the stem and the tree, everything. That I just take a bit of a brown, mix it with this brown here. Any brown you can take. Okay. If you see, the stem is a bit greenish, so what I'll do is I'll just go over the light green and brown. It gives the what I do is, I take this and I'm going to mix it to my blue here. When I mix my burnt sienna to the blue here, you get a nice burnt umber or a darker brown. See, that's the color I get. I'm going to do that. The little nodules. So that's where it's darker. Take a bit of water. This, not too many details, just quick finish of that. finish that. I'll take my thinner number 5. Do the same thing. I take a bit of brown and then add my blue and black mixed here. I'm going to darken certain areas to give me that depth. It's just a few lines. I'll work from light to dark. And the branch that the bird is sitting on will go through like that. Just one line. And what I'll do is now I'll add a few stems here. And love to add some leaves. Add some yellow so I get lighter leaves and darker leaves to the green. Quick. It's up to you. Done. Just beautiful. That's it. That's your bird.